welcome. This is Blacklisted Radio. It's good to be with you. It's the 14th day of June 2015. There we go. And my name is Doug Owen. I am the host of Blacklisted Radio, the show that you're listening to. We do a week in review, and you can go to the website blacklistedradio.com that is dedicated to this show. We have many great features, exclusive content, interactive chat room, lots of things that you can use, tools to be part of the show. You can also join the crew there along with myself during the live show. You can also text me if you have anything on your mind, 512-222-3067, and you can call into the show, 800-313-9443, and you will talk to Ken, who is now producing the show tonight and doing the weekend rotation. So congratulations to Ken. Maybe he is moving up in the world, hopefully not regressing, moving to the weekends. It's not a bad gig if you're a producer, especially on a rainy Sunday night at 9 p.m. So thank you for spending your time with us. I have a lot to talk about, and we should just start the show with the Bliderberg meetings. Media moguls, CEOs of Fortune 500 corporations, investment bankers, global central bankers, all went to the conclave to meet up once again for the somewhat secretive Bilderberg meeting. This year it is happening in, I think it's Telsbuchen, Austria, home of some pretty nefarious characters. And of course, if you look into the history of the Bilderberg group, you will find a lot of people that are of Austrian descent that are Nazis. So, not to disparage everybody at the meeting and what it's actually turned into. And when you look at U.S. history and our allegiances to and working with private corporations during World War II, plenty of people in very powerful positions, Prescott Bush, the IBM Corporation, IG Farben. I can go on about the history of the Bilderberg Group. They are trying their best to kind of give it a nice media spin. So this year, it's somewhat public, although they operate under the Chatham House rules, which is that you're free to talk about subjects that you discussed, but you cannot talk about what other members specifically said or really any of the details. Now, I think that there's two things that I always glean, and so this is kind of a rehash of my analysis on the Bilderberg Group from last year, if you listen to it, and that is that without the alternative media, without people like Jim Tucker that have really, rest in peace, Jim, who's been on the show many times and spent his career chasing the Bilderbergers and bringing light to these secretive meetings. If it wasn't for the alternative media forcing the issue and sometimes doing that with a little hyperbole, a little trying to make it sexy, trying to make it maybe darker and more sinister than it actually is, but nonetheless, the hyperbole around the Bilderberg Group always gets the attention, right? Because it's always that crazy guy that thinks that lizards control the U.S. government that's talking about the Bilderberg Group. So the media, who is often, just like this year, present, many of the very prominent media players, media moguls, go to the Bilderberg confab. So it's no surprise that many of the articles you'll read about Bilderberg, minus maybe The Guardian, have pretty much made fun of those out there that are looking at this meeting and this annual meeting and saying, hey, I mean, the news is that these people are meeting in secret. It's bigger than the G7 or the G1, as they call it now. It's just the U.S. by itself. But there's probably a lot of things that are being discussed, although, when it comes down to, the most secretive things in the world, I mean, if you look at the participant list for 2015, I mean, there's some big power players there. You have the CEO of Google's Deep Web, CEO of Siemens, DeepMind Project, Vice President of Engineering, Dennis Haspis, Google DeepMind. You have UniCredit Bank, Austria. Of course, he's the local. Enric Pampol. We can go through the list. Of course, always you have Henry Kissinger. And pretty funny, you have one of the legal experts for HSBC, criminal organization, but very powerful and influential there. I mean, you look at the people that are at this public meeting. It's not secret anymore, really. All of them are listed there, although there may be some political figures that are not here. Mary Erdoes, CEO of JP Morgan, Asset Management. Let me just go through the list. Citadel, let's see, former Chancellor of the Republic of Austria, more Nazis. Go through the list here. I mean, bankers and media moguls and pretty powerful and influential people have been rounded up this year to talk in secret. Now, that should be a story. The fact that the media, the alternative media, independent media that are there are being chastised by private security. I mean, if you look at the security that has been erected around the Bilderberg group, you would think that this is, Camp David. This is a huge meeting. And it really is. I mean, I can only imagine the private security that is there. And we're only seeing some of it. What you don't see is probably even larger. But nonetheless, I have a few thoughts on secretive meetings. If you look back hundreds of years ago, the Knights Templar and even Francis Bacon and other free thinkers that brought us things like the Magna Carta, that brought us the scientific reasoning as opposed to a dogmatic kingdom. The ideas that they were talking about were really, really revolutionary and were deeply dangerous to the powers that be. So you had to have, by covert means, discussions about the world not being flat, about questioning the church, which was the state. And so I don't necessarily believe that having an honest, open discussion is always the best thing, because people can misconstrue what it is that you are saying, and if every word that's coming out of your mouth can be scrutinized, you're not going to say what you really feel. So the amount of dirty little secrets that would be announced, not in back rooms and over cocktails and beverages and male masseuses and the other kinds of weird things that go on at Bilderberg, prostitution, all those things that go along with meeting with this kind of clientele. I mean, politics and prostitutes, hand in hand, Secret Service prostitutes. So that's a pretty reasonable assumption that probably lots of creepy stuff, sex parties, and business deals. So what are they talking about? Now, I don't subscribe to the personification of the Bilderberg group. I always hear this stuff, and I think it's really just kind of juvenile when you say the Bilderbergers are deciding this, the Bilderbergers are doing that, or Bilderberg as if it's a person. Bilderberg is doing this. Bilderberg is implanting microchips in people. There's some truth to that, and I don't want to disparage people that come into the fold and find war criminals like Henry Kissinger meeting with global bankers and think something nefarious is going on, because it absolutely is. Secrecy is usually a bedfellow of deception, and right now we have some pretty big deceptions that have huge global financial implications, one of which is TPP. So I should just mention that TPP is probably a big big item, or at least trying to sell the governments of the world that we want this trade resolution fast-tracked and put through, and it's to the Western world's benefit, the global order's benefit. The old world redefining itself in the new world is what I believe most of these meetings are really ultimately about. Making sure that we're not ceding power. People like Peter Thiel and other upstart new money folks that were very influential in the 2008 election and will be very influential running into 2016. So some of the hopefuls, I think, are probably on their dog and pony tour and meeting with people they want to get literally billions of dollars from. I mean, it's another safe assumption. You don't have to go into wild conspiracy land to see that this is collusion and just open corruption. This violates the Logan Act and respective laws, protectionist laws that these other countries have. There's tons of them. A lot of countries, you can't own property unless you are a citizen of the country. You have to be not a naturalized, but a natural born citizen to own property in Mexico. So there's plenty of examples where the violations of these discussions and the illegal aspect of it, are one of the reasons I'm sure the participants want to meet in secret. So the Bilderberg group is very powerful and influential, not as a group itself, because something this large can only really be, at this point, almost a public forum. Any one of these people slip up or tell their wives what's going on. This is a Chatham House rules, but these. I don't think that you would have these huge implications being discussed openly, at least not during one of the public forums. And of course, we don't know how the different meetings and other dog and pony shows play into it. I mean, it might be like Davos, and I imagine it would be very similar to where the power players get certain meetings, and the financial folks and the technology groups all have different agendas curtailed to their expertise. So anyway, what has come out of Bilderberg predictions? Bilderberg predictions are about as good as my autograph. That and $2 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Most of the predictions, most of the things, the hyperbole that you see in the alternative media do not come to fruition, are very, very inaccurate, and people will attribute almost anything to it. So I think that TPP is probably a big deal. I mean, Paul Ryan, if you don't remember him, he was the vice presidential running mate to Mitt Romney. He is saying, channeling Nancy Pelosi with what they're now calling Obama trade, TPP, which is you have to pass the bill to see what's inside of it. Now, I hearken back to a few moments ago where I said that secrecy is usually a bedfellow of deception. If TPP was good for people in the United States and people around the world, and it might be for corporate backers, but if it was good for everybody, the government would want to tell you about it. Oh, man, they tell you all of the wonderful things they're doing with money at the Department of Homeland Security, all of the wonderful things that are happening. But TPP, I think, is more important than ever because we have a huge problem. Edward Snowden's revelations have created an anti-New World Order protectionist movement across the globe that is causing a huge disparity for many of the participants at Bilderberg this year. $35 billion, and it may be more. I would estimate, ultimately, it's hard to put a value on it, but in excess, maybe even up to $1 trillion in the aggregate of money lost by these tech companies that, let's be honest, people around the world no longer trust. And it's not just U.S. companies, it's other European companies. Can't trust the Germans. I mean, the Germans are giving private data to the Americans. The Americans are ceding private data on U.S. citizens to Israel, to the U.K. The amount of surveillance and the intertwining of government has been going on for a long time. Many of you out there refer to it as the New World Order. It's a big problem when you have a just global distrust of the United States and U.S. corporations, rightfully so. So the revelations, though not that impactful with laws like the USA Freedom Act, which I just balk at calling that. Calling that a Freedom Act is just so Orwellian. But nonetheless, these guys at Bilderberg have a big problem. And the media moguls there have a huge problem. If you look at mainstream media across the board, television media, newspaper publications, all of these companies that are present in some kind of representation at Bilderberg are losing their shirts. Now there's, tech companies, they're few and far between that are there. The CEO of LinkedIn is there. There's a, variety of new types of technologies and companies that are represented at Bilderberg. So I would imagine that would be a huge concern. And cash money. Money. That is probably the biggest item that all of these people have in common, is that they have money. Now, I'll just go over to the Grexit in the Ukraine, where we have two economic crises unfolding, which, I think a lot of people are waiting for the other shoe to drop. When does Greece blow up? When do they just tell the EU, shove it, and start printing their own drachmas again? Well, the IMF is now extending more loans, even though they can't pay back their private lenders. So the IMF is using its power to basically blackmail, according to many of the private companies and banks that have been investing in the Ukraine, primarily, and in Greece, and they are going to continue to bail them out. So Gazprom, they might pay them if they think that, shutting off the gas will create humanitarian crisis. I don't know if the Gazprom will take the payment, but if they don't, then, then that really looks bad. So the, parapolitics of the day is, more than evident. Now with Greece, they just keep bailing Greece out. And you see the headlines on Zero Hedge. You see the headlines on Naked Capitalism. Greece finally is going to get out of the euro. Germany's finally tired of this. Well, the beat goes on. The IMF will continue to restructure. I don't know if the government will ever make any kind of concession with the bankers, the lenders. And when you can't print your money, you become prey to the system. People are starting to see that. When I really started first unwrapping my mind around these preconceived notions of what money, value, wealth, what political systems and how government actually operated. Once I pulled myself away from those things, I looked into money. The money masters, the high priest of society, and the ability to create money. Who can do it? Who cannot do it? Now, TPP is it's a way to control local governments from getting in the way of mega national corporations like Monsanto and the Energy Syndicate. We'll wrap up Bilderberg. You can chime in if you have your thoughts, or if you're at the Bilderberg meeting right now, or if you attended. We'd love to hear from you. It's Blacklisted Radio. Stay tuned. Blacklisted Radio right here on RBN. You can also, of course, find us at blacklistedradio.com. Talking about the Bilderberg confab, the annual meeting, the secrecy around the discussions that are most likely happening there. You have the economic woes. You have a few Western nations that could bring a tidal wave of anti-globalization to a head with Greece and the Ukraine. And mind you, the Ukraine, I didn't mention this, is doing everything they can to privatize all of the national industrial corporations. Not that I'm not, totally against, privatizing industry, government factories, and, the idea of socialism doesn't work well. Just ask our Venezuelan friends how much it costs for toilet paper in Venezuela, or how many days you have to wait in a line to get your eyeball scanned with a biometric identification device. Things could be worse. Things could be worse here on planet Earth, and, most of you listening to this show at least can enjoy a few of the spoils of the Bilderberg. Not really, but nonetheless, the people that are there, there's always good videos of them getting interviewed and kind of ambush journalismed by the people that are able to financially afford to go to Austria. We're in a hotel room. You can find one. The alternative media was represented by InfoWars. Russia Today, of course, interested. You have Skelton, who... Charlie Skelton, who is there for The Guardian, which is one of the only newspapers covering this. Although, there is local media coverage of the Bilderberg Group. I think they're forced to at least mention it so that they can say, hey, we're not part of it. We mentioned it. We did say that. I saw it on KXAN News. It's a local Fox or CBS affiliate. Shows how much I know. Anyway, I saw a clip on YouTube of them making mention of the Bilderberg Group, and they have before. So, when you say that there's no coverage, it's because there is literally no interest, because the people in media are the people that are there, and they have a big problem, and they're looking to these other group of folks there to help them hang on to their relevance here in the 21st century. Government is becoming less and less relevant in people's lives. You need them less. You don't need them to protect you from terrorists. They don't do a good job. You don't need the TSA to feel up your wife's chest. You just don't need them, because apparently if you wanted to get a bomb on a plane, you could. And people don't, because, there's just not that many people that get on planes with bombs. You have statistically, logically, way more chances of dying from, in just a mundane, boring way, or in altercation with a cop where you are misidentified. But calling a police officer to help you could be hazardous to your health. How many people get shot by the police because they called them? There's a lot of real things, and not to disparage all of you police officers listening to the show. It's not to blame you, but I think a lot of people they don't realize that when they call a police officer, they kind of have to take orders from that police officer. That's what police officers are trained to do. No compromise. You do what I say. And when people are distraught or rattled or emotionally unstable, and fighting with a spouse, call the police officer. Things happen. But we don't, we don't have PSAs. We don't have a huge amount of interest in regulating the police department, other than, the Obama administration, the DOJ trying to federalize the police by proxy and, nationalizing them and militarizing the police forces. Nonetheless, there are plenty of reasons that these people do meet in secret and want to keep you out of the discussions. TPP. If you thought that you had a representative government and that your local politicians and local laws matter, you might be upset to find out that international law supersedes the ability for you to do business. something that I have a lot of worries about. Will we be able to be represented in the 21st century? And that's why these companies are pushing for it, because people don't need them anymore. So anyway, we're going to take a quick break. Lots more. Your phone calls are welcome. Also, you can text me, 512-222-3067. It's Blacklisted Radio. Blacklisted Radio. War on cash, secret war on cash, discussions at Bilderberg centered around capital controls to abolish cash. That is one headline I saw. And, some of the attendees there, real power brokers, the wealthy, the elite, and some of the headlines here that kind of corroborate that. Expert says, quote, banning cash, the only solution to negative interest market problems. Cash on lockdown. Bankers want badly to charge you interest for depositing your funds. Banned. Chase Bank says can no longer store cash or precious metals in your safe deposit box. So here's a few headlines that kind of highlight this move. And, when you have physical cash, there's only so much of it. You can only print so many dollars. And, when you have cash, that means that you can keep it from the government. You can put it under your mattress. You can turn it into physical things without the government necessarily knowing about it, or your banker knowing what you did with that money. It's called privacy. You have a private transaction, whether you want to buy, and their thing is, you can buy a gun without us knowing. Well, the notion is that they would be able, with this kind of information, to stop terrorists or stop international crime. And by and large, every one of these terrorist operations we've seen over the last few years that have happened here on U.S. soil, the FBI was well aware of those people. The CIA or other intelligence agencies had been following them. Case in point, the Garland, Texas jihadists that killed the people there at the Pam Geller Let's Draw Muhammad event. So she's quite the yenta, isn't she? It's pretty obvious what her MO is. But nonetheless, you can draw Muhammad if you want. You can call Michelle Obama a man or a gorilla. I don't think you're necessarily racist or mean. I think you're mean doesn't mean you're racist, and doesn't mean she doesn't look like one. People say, well, Doug, you can't call her a gorilla. That's racist. No, it's the jawbone. It's the jawbone. If somebody said that she was transgender, I don't know. So anyway, I think it's beneath me and the show and you out there listening to, make fun of Michelle Obama or any of these people for their physical beauty or attributes. Not that I'm just, the Tom Cruise of alternative media radio either. So, but, criticism is fine. Before I go off on that tangent, oh my God, Doug called her a gorilla. It has nothing to do with her skin color. She's actually turning white like many other very rich black people do. They start turning, this creamy color. They don't look nearly as black as they used to. I don't know. It's they start turning green like money. Money. Anyway, so you have these jihadist idiots that were under surveillance. They were talking openly on the phone about, the same thing that they all do about, killing people and blah, blah, blah. And even with massive amounts of security, with just about every group you can mention, every police organization knowing about these guys, they still weren't able to save those few lives that were taken by nutbags that are only fueled by anger and by people that end up with State Department cash. Anwar al-Awlaki, people that go to State Department dinners. I can't make this stuff up. But I do think that the agenda in the long run is to get rid of cash money because it's physical presence of money, and it's not liquid. I mean, what I have in my bank account right now, I could log in and it's gone. It's gone. Never existed, Mr. Owen. You're crazy. Hey, what happened to my money? Please escort him out. Here's a police officer. If you continue to ask us about this money that never existed in any of our databases, we'll have you arrested. We'll put a restraining order on you if you contact XYZ Bank again. That doesn't happen often, thank God. But when you have a cashless society, we already have so many, I guess, hallmarks of the beast, if you will. Hallmarks of the beast, where people are chipped, ID digitally. We're past that point. I know that was a big talking point in the 80s, but we're there. The fact that the average person can take money, and in a lot of cases, you really do need to be able to do things privately. Had a friend of mine, his wife was being battered by her prior husband. Took her 10 years to finally get away from him. They had 3 kids. And the way that she was able to finally escape him was saving change, dollar bills, whatever she could, and hiding it in the dryer. And over a few years is able to accumulate enough money to finally escape. And, so those are the kind of things that that you couldn't do in a digital tracked, traced world. Sometimes it's good to be able to escape. Sometimes you have a tyrant that needs to be escaped, and to do away with cash would do away with a huge amount of anonymity that general average citizens have. So I can't imagine it's not on the agenda to finally give people credit for the corporation. You can use it at the corporate store. Just go in there and get your eyeball scanned. I mean, it's not passe. It's not taboo. It's very doable. It's we're there. The technology isn't lacking, but the will and the ability to do that, I think, is kind of limited by the American people and the people of the world's distrust of the government. Case in point, here in good old Texas, where I live, I reside here, under our new governor, Mr. Greg Abbott. If you're not familiar with Greg, he's Rick Perry in a wheelchair. Sorry, Greg. I mean, he says a lot of good things, but at the end of the day, just another crony. Sorry, Greg Abbott, and all of you Greg Abbott fans. He's, not worse than Rick Perry, but and the Democrat was running against him, not much better, if any. So, yeah, he's amping up military presence on the border. Great. But he still doesn't understand that the war on drugs and making marijuana illegal and arresting kids and ruining their lives for it is a bad thing. So, you'd think a guy in a wheelchair would be a little more receptive. See, that's where I've people start pointing their torches at me. Why do you think that, Doug Owen? I don't know. Just if you've had short fallings in your life. I mean, this guy was jogging and a tree fell on him. So you would think that, if that wasn't a wake up call, what would be? I don't know. Anyway, he signed off on new legislation to establish a state bullion depository. People are hailing this as a win. Maybe, sort of, I guess. Governor Greg Abbott, this came from the office of Governor Abbott. Quote, Governor Greg Abbott today signed House Bill 483 to establish a state gold bullion depository administrated by the office of the comptroller. The law will repatriate $1 billion of gold from the Federal Reserve in New York to Texas. The Texas Bullion Depository will serve as a custodian, a guardian, and administrator of bullion that may be transferred to or otherwise acquired by the state of Texas. Governor Abbott issued the following statement, in quote, Today I signed HB 43 to provide a secure facility for the state of Texas, state agencies, and Texas citizens to store gold, bullion, and other precious metals. Now, wait a minute. Are you saying, Greg, I could take my gold and give it to the government, and you'll now be a new custodian of it? Because I can't take it to my safety deposit box, and I can't use it at Walmart to buy diapers? I don't know. Do you trust Greg Abbott and the Texas government any more than the federal government? Maybe. Are they more trustworthy? Maybe. Why not? Sure. So anyway, it's going to become the first bullion depository state-level facility of its kind in the nation, increasing the security and stability of our gold reserves and keeping taxpayer funds from leaving Texas to pay for fees to store gold in facilities outside of our state. But I thought that was kind of funny. But, of course, the Fed, if you don't know this, most of you do, it's pretty well known. The Fed is a private corporation, okay, and they store state and other countries' gold for a fee. During World War II, it made a lot of sense. Why? Because if you were in Europe, you didn't know. You didn't know if you were which side of the line you were going to be on in Germany, east or west. So those kind of things played a huge role in the creation of these reserves in the U.S. out of the Bretton Woods Act. Anyway, Bretton Woods is slowly dying and reforming, but I think it's good in spirit. I think, tax dollars going to the Federal Reserve to store our gold is silly at this point. But, I just don't really think this is going to be that big of a deal. People get really excited about it because, and I do like the idea that the federal government is ceding power to the states. But I don't know that them holding gold over the head of Greg Abbott and the Texas state government was, ever really charging them or doesn't change power. They're not creating their own money. Now, if Texas was creating their own money or silver certificates and had other options like that, that might be pretty interesting. At the same time, I don't think it's all that interesting because I don't have gold that I want to give the government. So let's see. We got a few callers here on the line. Maybe still here. Sorry, I wasn't looking at the board. We'll take a break, and if you'd like to call in, and if Ken and Blue are on the line, we'll talk to them. Much more coming your way. Stay right here. It's Blacklisted Radio. Or maybe I just had a little background noise. That's what happens when you don't look at the clock. Anyway, so, South Lake, Republican, Kolkhorst, and Caprileone are the two that helped out with this new bullion depository. I'm interested. I am. That's why I've mentioned the story here. People get kind of excited about things like, using gold as money. And I've just never been that big of a gold money guy because I don't have enough of it to give back to the state. I don't want to take what gold I do have, which is very minimal at this moment, and use that for goods. I use gold not because I think it's even a great financial investment in the short term, because buying gold over the last 5 years has not performed very well. Now, if the economy blows up, or the little Bilderberg plan for global government and your bail-ins and the rating of safety deposit boxes and all the other things that may come into play to pay the bankers back, then maybe my gold will be worth a lot more. And that's why it's a hedge. And there's nothing wrong with buying a hedge. I think everybody should have a hedge, especially in this kind of unstable environment that we live in. Economic investments really do have to pay out in the short term. Look at what you're paying for eggs. Thank you, bird flu. Double, 33% more than you were last year. Beef, it's at an all-time high. Year to year, I think it's up over 15%. Don't quote me on that, but it's more. It's a lot more. Beef fajita meat, skirt steak, used to be thrown away. Butchers used to feed it to their dogs. $17 a pound. So I go to Michoacana, which is a Mexican supermarket chain. And they don't label it organic. They're just too cheap to buy the bovine growth hormone. And the meat just isn't as pretty. It's cut differently. I like it. Anyway, even then, you're still paying a premium for beef, even if you try your best to mediate that. We have a friend of ours that we go in annually with, sometimes 2 times a year, and we purchase half a cow. But yet that's the ability or the room to store it, and, it takes up a lot of freezer space. And if you have a deep freeze, especially an older one, that takes up a lot of electricity. Blah, blah, blah. It's expensive to be a meat eater these days. So the cost of just the simple things in life seems to be accelerating, and the amount of snicker money, as I call it, candy bar money, expendable income for average Americans and people around the world really is just diminishing at an astounding rate. And so some of the few things that you can hold on to and get a return on, you really have to. So I buy gold as a hedge. I think that as far as currency goes, it's cumbersome. Digital currency is convenient. Can you back a digital currency with gold? Can you keep one honest? It's the problem with Bitcoin. Not that I don't take Bitcoins, and if you have some, I'd love to have a Bitcoin or a fraction of your Bitcoin. But the reliance on machines, on a digital hard drive or some other kind of digital media to store Bitcoin it's scary to a lot of people. But then again, I guess PayPal is scary to a lot of people. My parents, they're a little bit older. They're seasoned in their mid-60s. They're still kind of skeptical of Bitcoin. PayPal. But they would never mess with Bitcoin. I use PayPal, and I'm still skeptical of Bitcoin. My kids will probably be all in and ready to, unfortunately, enjoy the supposed benefits of, enhancing yourself through technology. They already are. I see kids with these tablets attached to their faces. Their parents let them be. But, there are good things. My niece is learning Chinese with Rosetta Stone on a tablet. How many 5-year-old kids speak Chinese? Not to be braggadocious or anything, but those are kind of pretty cool things that were really, really hard to do for average people that didn't have a lot of money. So even though we don't have a lot of money, we have access to information and we have access to opportunities that we've never had before. So don't take that for
nothing but a smiling towel in the picture on the billboard in the field near the big old highway.
All right, we are in the final segment. To the phones we go. We will talk to Blue, who I think is in Tennessee. Let's talk to Blue.
Hello, love.
Hey, love. How are you?
I'm good. Two things. That wonderful diatribe that you went on about tangible assets. I'll give you a story of one of my clients that I work with. I work in a call center. She calls me up. They put me in a nursing home. I said, okay. We chatted about that for a second. And they're going to sell my house. And we chatted about that for a moment. And then she said, they can't take my rocks. So we sat down and we systematically spent $10,000 on nothing but gemstones.
Really?
So because when I'm in the nursing home, all I can tell them is that it's quartz. And they're not going to know the difference, are they? They're just going to be colored gemstones to them.
Sure.
I'm going, you rock, girl.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the few ways you can get out with what you have.
Yeah, she absolutely knew what she was doing. She had everything charted, everything written down. I made sure that she was lucid and that she was in cognitive control. Otherwise, I never would have let her do that. But she was. The other reason that I had called is simply because I want to make sure that if you're working for a company that is demanding that you're doing direct deposit, the next step is they're going to ask you to put it on a card. And I have worked for 2 companies that was an option. You couldn't get a tangible check to hold in your hand to go cash. You had to do it either direct deposit or you put it on this particular credit card. And every time that you wanted to get cash from this card, it was a $3 charge.
Oh, yeah.
Every time you used this card, they gave you 15 transactions, and then anytime after that, it was a 50-cent charge to use your own cash that you earned. And this is exactly where they're going.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they already want to charge you for depositing your money. They want to charge you rather than give you interest. So, there was, $30 billion in the last quarter that were collected by banks charging people excessive fees, parasitic fees for overdrafts and the like. And so somebody goes to the store and wants to buy a pack of cigarettes. They go online, they get their phone out, they look at how much money they have there, and it says, hey, I've got $10. They end up not realizing that they don't have that money or quite that much money, and they're buying $40 packs of cigarettes. People do that and know that they're going to end up having to pay that fee because they have to eat, because they have to pay bills, because they have to pay for gas to get to where it is to earn their next check. And it is downright evil.
Yeah, and the biggest tip that I can give anybody out there, make sure when you buy gas that you take the money cash in hand to go purchase it, because they will put a hold on your account for about $20 to $40, depending upon the station, on your banking account.
There you go. Thank you, Blue. Those are great tips, and do appreciate them. Guys, gals, thank you for being part of the show tonight. Of course, you can always find me online on Twitter at BLN Radio. That's the handle, and the website, the source, blacklistedradio.com. Until next week, have a good one.